Speaking of inappropriate,
very.
Let's go to Capitol Hill.
And full of it.
Democratic senator from Virginia, a guy that just can't tell the truth when he's on Top Chef. We speak, of course, of a member of the Senate Budget Committee, Senator Mark Warner. Senator, we are having you here under the condition that you don't lie about foods that are placed in front of you on Top Chef. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing all right, although I was really getting into that story. It was kind of a kill, though, when you said that it had actually been recorded a week earlier. So,
I know.
You know,
Well,
I'm like going with the whole story, and then it's like this early in the morning.
Stickler and buzzkill.
You can't get anything past those guys from New York Magazine. Hey, and so the Mets, they won the World Series and beat the Red Sox. It's 1986. Thanks, Heilman. So a lot of talk, obviously, centered around one thing, and that is front page of the USA Today. The United States owes $62 trillion. We added another $5 trillion in debt last year alone. What do we do, Senator? What do we do?
Well, I got to tell you, Joe, it's like we're watching this movie in slow motion of our nation rushing for that cliff in the Thelma and Louise movie as we're about to drive over the cliff. You know, whether you take your $61 trillion number, you take the more accepted $14 trillion number that the government owes, and we're adding $4 billion a day. You know, we look at these bad employment numbers. The only thing that we can get to jumpstart this economy and get part of that $2 trillion in cash that's sitting on corporate balance sheets off the sidelines and reinvesting in the country is to put a long-term deficit reduction plan in place. And you know, we're seeing Moody's and S&P go out there and do these downgradings. This is the most predictable financial crisis that we'll ever face. And in the meantime, the Congress is going through this kind of show votes that we have, showing Republican plans no good, Democratic plans no good. That's why I think this group, our group of five or group of six, or that we've been working on for months and months, we got to get out there, Senator, with a bipartisan approach.
It is like a hurricane that is coming to the shore. You know it's coming to the shore, and when it hits, there's devastation, and yet everybody's still on the beach. So what do you guys do to move it forward? What do you do in the gang of 5 or 6?
Listen, what we had, I was disappointed when about 2 weeks ago, Senator Coburn decided to take a break from the group. I thought that the final remaining differences we had were quite small. But, you know, the good news is we had 64 senators a couple of weeks ago send us a kind of attaboy letter, hang in there. We're going to go out and try to talk to some of those additional senators in both sides to try to move this from a gang to a horde, or a mob, I guess would be the better way to describe it, so that we can say, hey, here's a plan that would try to knock off more than $4 trillion off of that debt, a 10-year plan. It would put us on the right trajectory. Probably there'll be parts of it everybody will dislike, because it'll look at how do you reform the tax code to raise more revenues, how do you go after some of those entitlement programs.
So Republicans aren't going to want to do that. Obviously, Republicans are going to say, we're not going to touch that. Democrats are going to say, we're not going to touch Medicare, the biggest entitlement, as far as just pure money goes. So how do you pull those people together without them getting killed from their base at home?
Well, listen, Joey, I mean, at some point, America will do the right thing after we've tried everything else, to paraphrase Churchill. Well, we've tried about everything else, and I think just the plain numbers will force us to kind of get out of our foxholes. You can't get there without looking at the revenue side, and clearly there's a way to do this where you can actually lower tax rates and cut back on tax expenditures. You know, I think we got to protect the safety net, but there's no way we can maintain the viability of some of these programs unless we recognize changing demographics, the fact that people are living longer and medical costs are higher. So we've got to find a way to meet those obligations. That means, in a sense, cutting back on some of what we're spending. So, you know, if we continue to have this debate around this little 12% of domestic discretionary, we're up the creek.
That's not going to do it.
But I mean, listening to Connie Mack earlier, John Heilman, do you think that we can get both sides to agree? Well, because every time we hear everything is on the table, it's everything is on the table but this or but that. What Joe just said, whether it's Medicare for the Democrats or taxes for the Republicans.
I have a lot of respect for what Senator Warner and his now 4 colleagues are trying to do, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of optimism coming out of that group, Senator Warner. You guys have still, you said you were going to try to turn yourself into a horde, but I'm not sure that I've seen any evidence.
How do you do that?
Any evidence that suggests that you're about to gain that momentum, I'm afraid.
Well, there's an awful lot of these, our colleagues who seem to represent some of the more extreme positions, who are at least quietly saying, hang in there. I think it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and share some more of the details of this plan with other members. Recognize that we don't have a perfect product, but we got to get in this fight, because right now the two kind of polar opposites of let's bury our head in the sand and pretend that we can have a one-side-only solution, that's not going to get us to the finish line. And if we simply kind of limp through a debt vote without a long-term plan, I don't know what the bond markets are going to do. I'm not sure you guys know either. And, one thing that'll kill our jobs, 10% interest rates.
There you go. Senator Mark
Warner. Keep going.
Thank you very much
guys.
for being on the show this morning. Good to see you.
Thank
nice,
you so much.
Joe.
No, it's great. I know, seriously, the work you're doing is so important. And we're going to get a deal at the end, hopefully.